This was a program win for Texas, beating their rival in the Lone Star Showdown 27-17. And it's a program win because of how the season has gone sideways and how Texas is going to miss the college football playoff. The season in that regard was a failure. But they evolved and they grew and they looked into their own shadow, their biggest rival, their in-state rival, their most hated rival, a team that was competing with them for recruiting status, a team that had publicly said they want to be the flagship program in the state, and they killed them. Texas just kind of casually assassinated A&M. That second half was really something, where Texas was running outside zone for the whole game, and that resulted in a lot of TFLs and negative plays, but eventually they began to break off some longer runs. They began to wear on A&M, and you could see the physicality difference, the size difference, the speed difference. It was notable in about the middle eight to the early third quarter that Texas was the more talented team. And Texas also had the better game plan. They attacked A&M's weaknesses, outside zone, getting Marcel Reed off his rocker, and then using outside zone to then attack deep against an A&M secondary that, as we've seen against South Carolina, as we've seen against Notre Dame, they are vulnerable at times to big explosive plays. And Arch Manning is the best quarterback they faced all season long. What a win. What a win for Steve Sarkisian. Doesn't discredit anything that Mike Elko has done this year by any stretch of the imagination. But Texas, with a yardage advantage, with a rushing yards advantage, averaging 6.2 yards per carry, that might be a high for the year, though I'd have to go back and check that. And getting good enough pressure and having enough explosive plays through the air and through the ground to really keep A&M off their rocker. And then in the end, the two takeaways where Marcel Reed was forcing things and trying to play hero ball, and he's just not good enough to do that. Those takeaways sealed the deal, and that's how Texas won. A&M is consequentially eliminated from the SEC championship game. Texas was hoping for a little bit more chaos to reach the college football playoff. Unfortunately, that did not transpire. That did not happen. But I think the biggest takeaway that's positive for Texas is that Arch Manning is probably coming back next year, and he's going to be an absolute superstar. In this game, he had a 111.5 passer rating. I know that's not absolutely amazing, but A&M's defense is good enough, and Texas's offensive line has been shaky enough to where, with this game combined with the Arkansas game, the Oklahoma game, moments during the Georgia game, combined with their performance against Vanderbilt, he's improved as the year's gone on. And if Texas is able to figure out offensive line next year, and they'll return most of their receiver core, and Manning will get another year of development, I have no doubt that next season's Texas team will achieve more and be a better team in terms of power ratings and in terms of potential than this year's team was. Reed, for A&M, has also made improvements, but much like Manning, he probably needs another year to really, reach his full stride and potential and put everything together. He has a better supporting cast than Manning. Manning has more raw talent and is the better quarterback. This channel will make you a college football expert and help you enjoy watching games and make more accurate predictions. So what are you waiting for? Like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, comment your thoughts, and watch the video all the way through so that you can get the full package. And check the description and pinned comment for more ways to help yourself and this channel right now. Texas dominated. So in the second half, they outscored A&M 24-7. Score was 10-3, Texas A&M at the half. They did it with big plays, with consistent running. They stuck to their bread and butter, and they were kind of putting A&M on skates there. Manning was the best QB in the matchup, outdueling Marcel Reed, as we just talked about. Texas also had this edge that I have kind of a tough time explaining. But the outside zone, the run defense, the passing game, all of that killed A&M. And there was just this energy with Texas and their players and their staff that A&M did not have. And I think the post-game press conference and how Elko was mad and constantly confused and frustrated on the sidelines, and his players didn't look amped up when facing adversity, tells me that they still have some building to do. They still have some kinks to work out in their hose. Texas does too, but that was not the case for Texas on that given day, on that given Friday. They played one of their best games of the entire season and finished out the year strong. They also had big plays. We talked about that already. Texas had plays of 29 yards, 35 yards, 48 yards, and 54 yards. Half of those were passes. Half of those were runs. They were, in that second half, generating big play after big play and scored on the majority of their drives. And A&M, something I want to finish off with that I think is very important. A&M's year is not a failure because A&M was never going to be a national championship contender. With hindsight. Hindsight's 2020. But their roster isn't quite there. Their development, again, remember, they're only in year 2. So they're heading in the right direction. I love Elko as a coach. I was high on them preseason. I thought their win total at 7.5 was way too low. They end up going 11-1, and they're going to the playoffs, and they'll get a home game. But for A&M, they have to continue to fix that roster and develop it and continue to recruit at a high level. They're just not quite where Texas is yet from a roster standpoint, nor do they have the assistant coaches or some of the star power to compensate for that. They just are who they are. They're a top 15, maybe top 10 team who is great, but they are not elite. As for how these team seasons went, again for A&M, highlight of the year is Notre Dame. That win on the road was huge, and their destruction of LSU, causing Kelly to get fired, blowing out Missouri that way. They've had impressive wins. They've had some scary moments, but this is a team that in the playoffs is going to be able to put together enough offense and enough pass rush to cause some issues for multiple of the playoff contenders and participants. As for Texas, it'd be the same thing if they could make the playoff. Unfortunately, the loss to Florida is going to hold them back. That's really the loss that will hold them back. Out of Florida and Ohio State, the Florida loss really kind of puts the crowbar in the wheel of the bicycle and completely derails everything. Texas just does not have quite the resume to get in one of those final seeds as a 9-3 team. They're not quite there. If a few more upsets and more chaos happened, sure thing. But while the season was disappointing, they ended up strong on a high note. They beat some really good teams, and I think Texas entering 2026 will be better than they were at the start and end of 2025. Thank you for watching. It's my mission on College Football with Sam to make you the most informed, knowledgeable, and entertained fan as possible. We aren't perfect, but we hit the nail on the head more often than we hit our thumb with the hammer. Make sure to like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, comment, and if you're here, you've probably already watched the whole video. So thank you for doing those things.